Now, it's nearly 6 months since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, and since then, the economy has collapsed. Human rights for women and homosexuals are almost non-existent, and up to 8 million people are facing starvation.
Yes, the new rulers are facing international isolation and condemnation for their links to terror and abuse. But is this hindering aid efforts? Should the West and the UK be doing more to help the people of Afghanistan? Well, Dr. Nooralhao Nasimi is a former political refugee and now the director of Afghanistan and Central Asian Association, a charity that works to empower London's refugee community and the Afghan diaspora in the United Kingdom. First of all, let's talk about your personal story, if we can, for a moment. You fled the Taliban, you fled horrific Islamist rule. How did you get to the United Kingdom?
I fled Afghanistan in 1999 to escape the war, to escape the Taliban, and to find a safer place for myself and my family. Where eventually we arrived in the United Kingdom in 1999 and started my life by launching a community provision to support other people who were struggling or maybe who are struggling to integrate themselves into the British society. So then, of course, 22 years ago, we left Afghanistan, and with the hope that eventually the Afghan people will have a better future and Afghanistan will be a better place. But of course, it was happening. It was happening. After 2001, we had the NATO intervention. And thanks to the international community, in particular, thanks to the British people and the British government who supported Afghanistan with infrastructure, reconstruction program, improvement in women's rights, human rights, rule of law. And there were so many progress has been made for the past 20 years since the British involvement in Afghanistan. But then, as you said, that last year, on the 15th of August in 2001, Afghanistan seized by the Taliban, and those progress been disappeared from that country. And we don't know what will happen in the future, but the things that we believe and we hope that the international community should continue supporting Afghanistan, in particular during this winter where thousands of people, they are living in a very difficult situation.
And what do you think about the international community's response? We know that many countries have, of course, given refuge to many of the people fleeing the Taliban. This country, I believe, gave 15,000. The government set up a scheme for 15,000 refugees from Afghanistan. Do you think the response has been enough so far, or what would you like to see the international community doing now?
Once again, I would like to thank you to the British people and the British government who managed to evacuate thousands and thousands of people on the 15th of August. Britain was the first country evacuated so many people from Afghanistan. But at the same time, once again, thank you to the British society that last month the British government pledged another £50 million to Afghanistan to reduce the level of poverty. We have to remember 90% of the people in Afghanistan for the past 6 months, they are living under starvation, and they are suffering because of lack of food and lack of access to medicine, and thousands of displaced people, they are living on the street. According to the program Panorama on Monday, which I saw on BBC, I watched on the BBC's John Simpson, was reported that people, they are selling their organ and kidneys just to buy some food in order to survive.
And to some extent, those are the lucky ones, because others have been dragged from their homes and executed by the Taliban in quite brutal ways. There's a real moral quandary here, isn't there? Because obviously, we see people in squalor and we want to do everything we can to help. But on the other hand, we don't want life under the Taliban to be encouraging the Taliban's rule, to be helping the Taliban. It's a really difficult position because obviously we want to sanction the political leadership, but it's hard to do that without hurting the people as well.
But I think that Afghanistan faced a new, maybe page in its history. And I think that the diaspora living outside Afghanistan can play an important role to improve the situation. Maybe a democratic election in Afghanistan should be happening very soon. I don't think that the Taliban can lead the country alone by themselves. As you mentioned, they have a very bad track record in terms of human rights abuses. But then our obligation as a British citizen, as a British people, I think that we shouldn't leave the people of Afghanistan in such a difficult situation where they are suffering because of the insecurity, torture, persecution, and also lack of food. I think that this is our moral obligation to support these people. I think that Britain historically is a society that supported many countries around the world to sustain some kind of peace and security, as well as reduce poverty, including in South Asia, in Africa, and in South America. And we hope that Britain will do the same thing with Afghanistan in the longer term. There is no any other hope.
Can I just ask you what your feelings are in terms of the way we as a society in Britain discuss immigration? Do you think we discuss and deal with the issue of immigration and asylum and refugees in a productive way? Or what do you think about the sorts of conversations that we see around immigration?
So we remember we have two kind of migrants in the United Kingdom. One is the political migrants, and the second is economic migrants. And I think that the people who fled Afghanistan or been evacuated from Afghanistan, we consider them as a political migrant. And of course, they expect from us to be treated fairly, and then doing our best to support their integration, accessibility, and build a better future for themselves and for their children.
Mm. And it's that integration that's very important, isn't it? Because, of course, so many of these people have been working with, so many of these people and their families are people that helped our British armed forces out in Afghanistan. By doing so, put themselves in danger from the Taliban. And now, really, our thank you is to help them over here. I think a lot of people are supportive of that. Many opinion polls show that people are supportive of those who help our armed forces coming here. How best, finally in this conversation, how best do we help them integrate into British life?
And that's why we are holding a conference on the 8th of March in the House of Parliament to discuss some of the challenges faced the new arrived community, and hopefully we will have some of the key speakers from the House of Parliament and other politicians from the Home Office. So far, those people from Afghanistan evacuated in August, they are still living in the region hotels. Most of them, they are suffering because of the mental health issues, because of the isolation, lack of access to the opportunities available in the UK. And we are, as an organization at the Afghanistan and Central Asian Association, working very hard with the small resources to provide English language classes, to provide workshop for women, as well as supporting online activities such as the English language online, and helping them with the housing, working in partnership with many other organizations across the United Kingdom to make sure that those people receive the adequate support.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Nooralhao Nasimi, thank you so much for joining us this morning to discuss that. We really appreciate your time. Director of Afghanistan and Central Asian Association, and of course a refugee himself, having fled from the Taliban in 1999.
That integration point is really important. We can't have ghettoised communities in this country.
No.
Especially people who want to become British. We really need to help them to do that.
Absolutely, and language is a massive part of that, isn't it?
Yeah.